All righty. So again, welcome to the Senior to Alumni Career Webinar Series, What I Wish I Would Have Known panel. Some quick etiquette, just so that we have a amazing panel be able to kind of share their thoughts and feelings. If you could keep your audio and video muted as attendees, that would be appreciated. That'll help with feedback and making sure we get everything across that we want to. Please open your chat. We'll use that throughout the time for you to ask questions of our panel members, and I'll be monitoring that during the panel here. And if you have any questions, just put that into the common chat, and I will check that. So if you have any technical issues or just want to try to figure out what's going on, please do that, and I will definitely help you. So to kind of get started, we have, again, an amazing panel, and I'm going to have each introduce themselves. So I'll have them share their name. I'll have them share their major or degree that they received at UCCS and or any degrees they're currently working on, their professional title, and what they do for a living. So Lauren Taylor, I will start with you if you're ready. Looks like we maybe lost Lauren, so we'll come back to her. Travis Tafoya, we'll go to you. If you could introduce yourself and kind of give us a little bit of your background.
So my name is Travis Tafoya. I graduated in 2016 from UCCS with a degree in psychology and a minor in human services and counseling. I currently work for Delta Kappa Epsilon International Fraternity, doing their educational programming, planning their events, and their in-person curriculum for harm prevention and leadership development. I use he, him pronouns.
Thank you, Travis. So Lauren, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, guys. My name is Lauren Taylor. I graduated in May 2020. I'm an assistant program director for Hey, can you hear me?
We can. Sorry, technical issue. Keep going.
Okay, so my name is Lauren Taylor. I work for Peak Education. We're a nonprofit in the Springs focused around education equity. We started in D2 and have been around for 20 plus years. We've expanded to D11 and 14. We start with 7th graders and follow them to college and beyond. And we have a college counselor on staff. We work with things such as like community development, family engagement, local fundraising, and nonprofit development, and provide opportunities for our students to be engaged and prosper through college and beyond.
Thanks, Lauren. Samantha Almario.
Hi, everybody. I'm Samantha. I graduated in May 2020 as well with my bachelor's in psychology and a minor in military science. I am also back in school at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and I am working on my doctorates for clinical psychology. Yeah, so I'm also, I know it says right there, aspiring to be Army psychologist, but I'm already in the Army. So this is just another program that the Army is allowing me to do, so that way I can come back as an Army psychologist for them.
Thanks, Sam. And last but not least, Derrick Meriwether.
Hey, my name is Derrick, graduated in December of 2017. I work at T. Rowe Price, which is an investment firm, so dealing with 401ks and employer-sponsored retirement accounts. I'm a senior representative, so it's basically, long story short, it's like an assistant manager. I'm the right-hand man to my manager and other managers, and providing support to the floor with escalations, researching, any escalations with participant accounts or plan issues as well. So graduated with a history degree and a minor in communications. So not necessarily in my field, but the research portion does carry over. I'm just really happy to be here.
Yeah, Derrick, I think your story will be similar to many, that your major doesn't always match up to what you ultimately do, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's a good thing. So thanks for sharing that. All right, so to get started with our first question is, what did your career pathway look like and how have you gotten to where you are now? So maybe we'll start there with Derrick, since you kind of just introduced your career path. Kind of talk about how you got from that history degree and that minor in communications to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I was I was getting ready to graduate, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Originally, when I went to school, I wanted to become a teacher. And then I started, I was coaching, volunteer coaching, and started dealing with parents. And I was like, maybe teaching isn't so much for me. But I had already started taking all these history courses. And I was working with, I don't remember her name, her position, but she works in the College of Business, and she knew someone at T. Rowe Price, and the recruiter at T. Rowe Price. And I got in contact with him and just started talking about the role and everything it entails. And I just happened to get an interview and got selected to work here. But I think, it's just interesting because a lot of times you feel you go to college and you do want to get or search for a career in your major. But although I'm not in any history field, there are still tangible skills that you can acquire through your major that can apply to vast majority of jobs. So in my case, it's research and writing. That's something that's carried over for me. And it's been a huge help to me because I know how to research. I know what questions to ask. I know when to ask them. And that has been monumental into where I am today. And that's kind of my story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Derrick. I appreciate you adding a little bit more depth to the, using your skills in many different ways. That's something we want our students to take away. Sam, how about you? Kind of talk about your career story and how you've gotten to where you are currently and what your future goals are.
Yeah, of course. So I was actually active duty in the Army for 6 years prior to coming to UCCS. I was awarded a scholarship program. It's called the Army Green to Gold. So once I graduated with my undergrad, then I commissioned back into the Army as a second lieutenant. But I guess UCCS wasn't enough schooling for me, so I got the Army to, I got the Army to basically agree to let me go to graduate school, which is what I'm doing now for clinical psychology. And yeah, I guess the rest will be history.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Sam. Travis, how about you? Kind of talk about your career story, how you've gotten to where you are now.
My career story really started when I was an undergrad at UCCS. I was really involved in campus clubs, activities, student organizations, and the UCCS alumni office. So I helped start a chapter of one of the fraternities on campus. And through that work, I got to know a lot of the national organization's operations and ended up getting a job with the national organization when I was graduating. I had a really hard decision when I graduated of choosing to go straight into graduate school to work or to study higher education and what it looks like to run an educational institution or to go work directly after school. So I moved out to Chicago and worked for the Sigma Epsilon National Fraternity staff, where I did educational programming, wrote curriculum, planned large events for their organization. And then also, after a year of doing that, I moved on to their traveling field staff. So I traveled for 2.5 years to over 45 different college campuses, working with students, doing a lot of harm prevention, sexual violence prevention, alcohol safety training, and organizational development for them. And then decided to go back to graduate school when I was in Chicago and started a graduate program at DePaul University, which I'm still currently in. And then moved into the current role that I have, where I now work remote and have for the year doing their online education. And really it's been consistently working in higher education, working with college students around the country, and looking at how we support student success. And a lot of that comes from my undergraduate experience at UCCS with student government, with the clubs and organizations, and the different offices that I was engaged with in student employment as well.
Yeah, that well-rounded experience you had really speaks to kind of where you are now. Also, I appreciate sharing that you traveled for your job. That's probably not something maybe you envisioned early in your career, but that's probably the time to do it, is be on the road and meet and engage people. So taking advantage of that opportunity sounds like something that was valuable to you. Thanks for sharing that, Travis.
Thank you.
Lauren, how about you? Kind of talk about your career story and how you've gotten to where you are now.
Sure. Thanks so much, Danny. I started college as a first-generation student in Kentucky. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was a high-achieving student, and so I knew that I should go to college, but didn't know much besides that. I finished my undergrad and was pregnant with my lovely daughter. You might hear pop in the screen. And we decided to move to Colorado. Undergrad in psychology had limited options, and so I chose to pursue my master's in counseling. My first generation status was really important to me, and I was a McNair Scholar as an undergrad, and so it drove my work and my interest in my graduate. I worked at the Career Center and found my passion for career counseling. And so all of this culminated into my position with Peak Education. So I'm doing a little career counseling, a little bit of personal counseling, growth and development. But I think it all hinged on my early relationships and my McNair Scholarship to get me to where I am today.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the kind of the identity of recognizing as a first gen student, and for the rest of you, some of the identities you have around being veteran or some of the places that you've came from. So I appreciate you all sharing those identities. I think that really resonates with students. So question 2 is, what was your transition out of UCCS like? What challenges were there? What successes have you had so far? What lessons learned? So I'll kind of start here with Sam, if she's ready to kind of share kind of that transition piece, since this was really new for her.
Yeah, of course. It was very new. It was, if I could sum it up probably in one word, maybe chaotic. Trying to move, right after graduation and in the middle of a pandemic was quite difficult. And then being able to settle into my new place right before I started grad school. So just kind of that transition was a little tough, but I did have a good support system here, so that definitely helped. As far as me leaving UCCS, as far as like career-wise goes, I guess you could say, I felt really good. I had my resume reviewed before I had left, so I knew with me getting a new job while I was in school, I wasn't really too worried about it. And then I always knew that I had the Career Center to fall back on if I ever had any questions or anything like that. So I felt very secure there. Yeah, and I think taking advantage of all the events as well that UCCS had to offer while I was there helped me out as well, as far as talking to any other professionals that are maybe that went through similar situations such as me, or that was in a profession or a career field that I wanted to eventually go into. I was kind of able to talk with them, get some insights. So that definitely helped as far as the transition goes as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's something important that Sam said there is that you don't lose access to resources when you leave UCCS. You still have access to the Alumni Office, the Career Center, and many other resources. So the things that you might have or may not have taken advantage of during school, you can do that as an alum, and that's something we're really proud of at UCCS. Thanks for sharing that, Sam. Travis, how about you? Kind of talk about the transition, challenges, successes, lessons learned.
Yeah. So I graduated early, sort of. So I did 3.5 years for my undergrad at UCCS and was straight out of high school into UCCS. And graduating in December was challenging. I think one of the things that in terms of that transition was challenging, because a lot of job placement was looking for people to be graduating in May. So I had some challenges at first trying to figure out what am I going to do graduating in December. A lot of the graduate programs that I was looking at applying were looking to start the next fall. And so the timing of when I graduated was a little bit of a challenge, but at the same point I was ready to get out and not continue taking courses and needed to move on. So I graduated in December and then moved to Chicago a couple months later to work for my national organization. And one of the biggest challenges that I had was meeting and making a social group when I moved to a new city away from Colorado Springs. finding and making friends as an adult after college is not made for you. It's not like organized. There's no structure. There's no clubs and organization fair to go to and meet a ton of people. And there's not somebody holding your hand to give you this social interaction with people in a new city that you moved to after school. So that was a challenge for me. But I think I was really able to rely on some of my coworkers and build a group of people that I met. And it took time and patience to really feel connected in the new city that I was living in. I'd say one of the biggest successes that I had was being able to rely on the mentors and friends that I had at UCCS to coach me through that process of what it looks like to graduate and move into the workforce. I know one of the things that I wish that I had done more is take advantage of understanding what a full-time job entails. What is a 401k? What does it look like when a company invests for you and supports you as your retirement packages? How to understand a benefits package from a job. None of that was really educated in my curriculum of the core program that I was in. And so I attended a couple sessions as a student, but I would say that was one of the challenges, was trying to navigate that whole process. And the whole workforce gets it. And you're this new person coming in and trying to figure it out and navigate it all on your own. So that was definitely a challenge, and something I'd advocate for students to engage with when they can as a student.
Thanks for sharing that, Travis. And we often hear that the job search might not be as stressful as actually after accepting the job, because then you worry about moving, or like you said, meeting people and finding friends, and do I buy a new car? Do I, all those things that you may not have thought about when you were actually job searching. So it sounds like you kind of learned through that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lauren, how about you? Kind of talk about your transition out of UCCS and kind of some of the things you've learned.
Absolutely. I would say that my transition was fairly easy, and I think it's because I had the support of so many wonderful people. If there's anything I would say that has helped me along my way, it's been relationships. It's been the strengths of the relationships with my scholarship, and then with the Career Center. And in my master's program, I was part of a cohort. And so even after graduation, I have a group of people doing the same thing I'm doing. And so that support was really important to me. My current job, I actually got because they did services at the two schools where I did my internship. And so the connection was just naturally there. And so those things were all really good and easy for the transition. I would say some of the challenges have just been with my family situation. So I have 2 young children, and again, like my daughter's bouncing in and out, trying to make sure I have childcare. And I think that that's important as a graduating senior, is that you just understand how some of your choices with family or location, direction can be wonderful and life-changing, but they don't necessarily make it easy. And so I would say that the childcare was probably my biggest challenge, just making sure my children are supported and learning and well taken care of. I did learn after my undergraduate program the importance of being involved on campus and really reaching out and building my network. And then in my graduate program, through my work with the Career Center, I just learned the importance of online presence and online networking. I think especially in 2020, it's become such a vital importance. And I think that the most opportunities are going to lie if you have strong relationships and you have a strong online presence. So I think that's pretty much sums up my experience.
Yeah, networking seems to be a common thread between a lot of your answers, panel members. So that's kind of a trend I'm noticing. Derrick, how about you?
Yeah, so graduated much the same as Travis in December of 2017. At that time, I had already accepted a role at Rowe Price, but it didn't start until February. So I think for me, the biggest challenge that I faced early on, especially in my working career, being this is my first real job, is learning what to do with all the spare time when there's no homework or studying need to be done. That was a challenge that I didn't foresee. I always thought, oh, I have enough time to do this, but I didn't realize how tired I would be after a 10-hour day or a 9-hour day or a 12-hour day, to where I don't have the motivation to do the normal things that I enjoy doing. So that was one of the challenges. The second was actually networking. Anytime I had to go to a networking event or was asked to partake in a networking event. I always struggled with that. I originally didn't understand or didn't realize the impact networking could make for your career. But I've learned that, and that's a message I share to people now, is it's super important to make those connections, to get to know people, because those connections and relationships can really continue to push you forward. One of the successes, I would say, is I think UCCS really helped me with my time management and learning, what things are important and need to be prioritized in terms of get done now as opposed to what can be done later. And that's something I still learning to continue to do every day, better time management skills. But that's one thing I did learn. And then finally, lessons that I learned would just reiterate the previous 2 points of how important networking is and getting to know not only your peers, but people in other departments and business areas. And then the second and final piece would be just continuing to build on time management skills, because no one is checking in with you to make sure you're meeting deadlines. It's either, hey, why did you not get this done? Or, hey, thank you for getting this done on time. So really just some of those hard life lessons that you learn once you do graduate from school.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Derrick. And again, that networking theme keeps coming out. And I want to make sure I point out is that networking doesn't always mean that relationship, anything happens today or tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so, continually to build those relationships is important. So Derrick, you this was a great transition because you kind of just talked about one of your takeaways from UCCS was your time management skills. So I'll kind of start with Sam. What was your greatest takeaway from receiving your degree from UCCS? What's the one or two things that you've kind of seen have helped you as you now are going on to graduate school?
Yeah, I think probably one of the main ones is that I really see UCCS as a necessary stepping stone, which definitely helped shape my ideas, ways of critical thinking. Definitely by participating in some of the networking events and all of that UCCS had to offer, definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. And that's what grad school is all about, is, pushing you beyond your comfort zone, especially when you're in a helping profession. Definitely takes a toll on you. But I'm very thankful to all of I'm sorry, I apologize, it's my dogs in the background. But definitely, I think the main thing was just attending those events and appreciating how it has pushed me out of my comfort zone and kind of teaching me those necessary skills for building relationships and networking.
Thanks, Sam, and no need to apologize. We're all working from home these days, and like Lauren said too, we've got kids, we've got people coming in and out. It kind of humanizes us, so I appreciate it. Travis, how about you? What's one or two takeaways from your degree at UCCS that you feel like you use pretty commonly or on a daily basis?
Yeah. So specifically from UCCS that I've taken away has, I think, been a sense of pride. I grew up in a small town in Colorado and was introduced to UCCS through the Pre-Collegiate Development Programs Department. They worked with first-generation incoming college student or incoming high school students and got me and my family introduced to the university at a very young age, and really helped support me and my family through what higher education looks like, because I didn't have that support from family members. And so when I was able to go to UCCS and then be so involved and be engaged as a student and get connected with staff members and with people there, graduating, I was able to really have a sense of pride of going to UCCS. And then my career afterwards, being able to travel and work with so many different colleges and students around the country has really made me so much more proud of UCCS because of the institution that it is. It's so integrated with the community, much more than a lot of other universities are, in terms of having business to private businesses partnering with the university through like the Ent Center is something that the university has really strived for and made me proud of attending and being a part of UCCS. From my degree specifically, I had a counseling professor. One of his philosophies was that everyone's behaviors make sense in their situations. And that's something that I've really carried with me is to have a sense of understanding and empathy towards others, of trying to understand their situations and where they're coming from. So from UCCS specifically, I just really felt connected to the community in a way that I think a lot of the students that I've worked with professionally around the country don't have, and makes UCCS really unique.
We're so glad to hear that sense of pride. That's something we really try to build with our students, and a lot of kudos to the alumni office who's really trying to build that as well. So thanks for sharing that. That really makes us feel proud. Derrick, how about you? Anything you want to add to your answer around kind of some of the key takeaways? I know time management was one, but I bet there's been a few others.
Yeah, the other thing, the other greatest takeaway I would say from receiving my degree at UCCS, and maybe it's not directly correlated, but the importance of relationships. At UCCS, I felt very in tune with my professors. Like I could have a personal relationship with them, like they knew who I was. I feel like I could go to them. And that's something that I've been able to carry with me on my career path, because I do strive to actually build relationships, especially being in a leadership role. I try to make every associate feel like I do care, because I do. I want them to know that they are important. So really learning and seeing, how my relationship was with my professors, and trying to be and create a relationship with people that I work with, even on a peer-to-peer level, has been one of my greatest takeaways, because there's no better feeling than someone coming to you with a question or a situation because they trust you. They trust that you're going to give them good insight. They trust that you have the knowledge to help them find it. And even in my case, moving to a different department that I had no prior knowledge of, but they come to you because they know that if you don't have the answer, you won't just tell them you don't know. You'll go find it. You're resourceful to them in that way too. So I would say the relationships and how important those are, not only to me but to everyone else. I would say don't overlook that. It's very important, very, very important, and that was my greatest takeaway from UCCS.
Yeah, another common thread between a lot of your answers is that relationship you all built with faculty that you had. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Lauren, how about you? Kind of greatest takeaway from your UCCS degree?
I think it's so interesting how, to me, coming from a small town in the South, that the Springs seems like a really big area, right? And UCCS seems like a big university. But I think that it felt very similar to my small one, in that the departments are connected. People are there to help you. And so it's a big little university. And my biggest takeaway is that no matter what my challenge or opportunity, there was a department that had a resource available to help. So whether it be the career center and the clothing closet, just getting professional clothes for interviews, or Clyde's Cupboard and the food pantry, connecting some of my friends and other students to food resources, the Veterans Center and their programs for veterans, it just amazed me how many departments were there and had some kind of resource to help the students. So I think that my greatest takeaway is don't be afraid to ask. If you have something you don't understand, or if you have an opportunity or something that you need help with, reach out, and don't stop with one person. If you don't get the answer from a teacher, reach out to an advisor, reach out to the Alumni Center or the Career Center. Just be pursuant and keep asking questions until you find the answer you need, which again builds upon that relationship piece. It might not seem like every person you meet in your life is going to have a direct impact, but I promise you, if you spend the time and energy getting to know people and places and things around you and how you interact with those people, that it will propel you forward in so many ways. I've been developing my own theory on career, and I would say you can have any degree, you can have any kind of work experience, but the person who has the strong relationships is the one who will get the job every time. So just make sure you're spending your time and that you're spending purposeful attention in growing your network and making sure that you understand the job that you want and the people who have that job.
Yeah, amazing advice, Lauren. And something that's, I think it's a really important lesson for students as they transition is, and I think Derrick even mentioned this in the workplace. Directions aren't given to you. You're given a task, you're given, and you're expected to go figure it out on your own, right? So asking for help, looking for that support, is something that you kind of have to learn. It's not as prescribed as it might feel like in college or in high school, where you were told kind of how to work through a task. So I think that's really important life lesson there. Thanks for sharing that. So we're actually going to open it up to you all. There's a few students here on the webinar, as well as some staff members. So we would love if you have any questions specifically for our panel. You can either put that into the chat and I will read that out, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question aloud. So whatever works best for you. I'll give us 30 seconds to a minute here to see what comes in. All right, we got a great question from Joanna, who asks, are there any specific remote work advice that you would give? So for those of you that are working remotely or going to school remotely, can kind of talk about some advice you would give to those, because that's probably a reality for a lot of people right now that are graduating, that you will probably work remote depending on the field or organization. Anyone have any feelings on that? Want to jump in?
Yeah, I twofold on that one. So the first, which being a master's graduated student and professional, I fell into my own trap and didn't test out technology before I got started today. So I would say, just on the very basis, the nuts and bolts of it, come early, come often, and know your equipment, know the platform. If you're interviewing remotely, just make sure that you familiarize yourself with what platform they're using and any kind of technology. Make Google your friend. So it seems so obvious, but everything you would ever need to know about anything can be found usually on an instructional video on YouTube. So do the research and familiarize yourself with those different technologies. And then I actually have worked remote before the pandemic, and that was with Progressive, the insurance company. And I think one of the biggest things is to define your workspace, because it's so easy. Like right now I'm sitting at the kitchen table because my 4-year-old has to be attended to. But if possible, I would be in my own office. When my partner gets home, I do have a separate office. I define my work hours. I set up a routine and schedule for myself. And if I didn't do that, things creep in. So being a mom, doing laundry, whatever it may be, those things are present and don't go away. And so if you don't have that clearly defined workspace, work time, it's easy to get distracted and to do the things that you would normally do while you're at home when you're at work.
Great feedback, Lauren. What about Derrick, Sam, or Travis? Anything else you would add to that?
Yeah, I'll add. I'll be honest with you guys. I was a super huge anti-work from homer when I first started at T. Rowe Price. I loved going into the office. When I took on my new role, I love the office. That was my thing. So when I started working from home, I started to realize, oh, okay, this isn't as bad, and I slowly started to turn around. But I think the biggest tip I would give you for work from home is try to eliminate distractions. Kind of like what Lauren was saying. I have my own little corner in my home this is my workspace, and nothing comes into this space that is not work related. Just because it's so easy. When I was living in an apartment, I would log off my computer and I would turn around and I'd go sit on my couch. It was that close. And it was really hard to break up my days in between, oh, am I at work or I'm at home? But now that I've bought a new house and I have a separate space for that, it's a lot easier. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is build out time for you to get outside of your house or your workspace. So go on a walk when you take a 15-minute break. Maybe on your lunch, go for a walk. Really break up your day, because when you stay inside all day, it is draining, especially if you do work long hours. Those would be my two biggest tips and things that I've done to really help me not only enjoy work from home, but manage the remote work for an extended amount of time due to the pandemic.
Great feedback, Derrick. Sam or Travis, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, Daniel.
Go ahead.
So I've been working remote for about 3 years now. A lot of it was while I was traveling, on and off planes, in and out of hotels, 1 week in the office, 1 week not. Very, very flexible and free moving schedule. I would say the biggest thing that's helped me is taking my larger projects and breaking them into tasks, and working off a checklist really helps me when working remote, because I don't have constant supervision or somebody standing over my shoulder, or even weekly or daily contact with my supervisor. Sometimes I'll go 2 weeks without speaking to my supervisor, and really just be expected to get my work done. And so a lot of it has just been finding ways to hold myself accountable to that work. And I do that through checklists, through goal setting processes that I work on my own. But I think that Derrick and Lauren both really mentioned is creating and setting your own workspace, and making sure you can maintain that. I set a really strict personal policy that I will not work after 5 p.m. When I'm working from home, and I wake up at 9, and I don't watch TV between those two blocks. And so just really making sure you have a routine that works for you is something that really, really works for my structure. The other piece, and we mentioned this before, everyone's kind of talked about the power of relationships and how important that is. Working remote and finding ways to continue those relationships and build relationships remotely has been really, really important in terms of like my own self-care, my own like leadership development and career development, of making sure that when you have a Zoom call or a chat with somebody, you're staying on a few minutes afterward to catch up and just have that casual conversation with one another, because we don't get that in a virtual environment that we would when we have an office meeting. So how are we creating those spaces has been an important thing for me, is how can I find those casual interactions with the people that we're working with, whether it's just giving them a phone call or staying on early or late, or logging on early to calls to connect with people. When I'm on conference calls, I'll text the friends that I know that are on the conference call and just kind of catch up with them while we're doing our work as well. So it's trying to build that community when you're not physically there has been important for me as well.
Yeah, that's advice that I think all of us can take, including me. I know in this virtual space, we just go from meeting to meeting to meeting without that informal, getting to know you, making sure we maintain relationships. That's awesome. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my fellow panel members hit on some really good things. I think the only thing that I would stress is self-care. It looks different for everybody, and even all the tips that the panel members gave, you may realize that some of them may not work for you. And I think really taking that time to kind of reflect and get to know your situation, because maybe to-do list doesn't work for you, or maybe you kind of have to do something else. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I'm a to-do list person, so that's why I can't think of anything. But yeah, really, really take that time and kind of reflect on yourself and figure out what it is you need and how you can find that balance between doing your remote work or school work, and then also making sure you take care of yourself as well during this time.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. That's really important advice, because I think this work at home stuff is here to stay for a while. And a lot of companies have even decided to stay at it even after the pandemic may subside. So that's awesome. We got a great question from Elena, who said, because of COVID, the career that she wants to start in is really not hiring right now. So would you suggest all as panelists just starting out in a different position and then applying when an opening comes up in the preferred field? Kind of just talk about, and Derrick, you did a good job of this, talking about, don't look at, don't look at the long term here, look at the short term. Your skills can be used in many different ways. And you can ultimately get to some of those careers. But anyone want to add anything to that? Kind of talking about how you should look at your job search.
I can kind of talk a little bit about that. The first thing that came to my mind when I was looking at this question was there may be a certain company that you could be looking for, and maybe they're not hiring, but there's plenty of companies out there. If location is not like a defining factor for you, then maybe considering looking at different places. And especially now with COVID, maybe they could do something remotely as well, where you don't necessarily have to relocate for that specific job. But I definitely agree with Derrick as well in maybe looking at, if you're not able to find what you're looking for and you feel like you've exhausted all resources, to include the Career Center. I'm going to preach the Career Center for a little bit since I used to work there. So if you feel like you've exhausted everything, I think Derrick makes a really good point, and maybe looking at some type of an employment that can help build soft skills or some of those underlying skills that you may need for that desired career field that you want to go into.
Thanks for sharing that, Sam.
I would add to that. I saw, Aliana, that you replied that you want to be a crime scene investigator. So as a Career Center employee, I'll give you a quick little meeting here. So if that's the job you want and you're not able to get into those positions immediately because of COVID or not hiring other things, start looking at the adjacent things in this field that you can do. So I am sure there's some kind of professional organization for crime scene investigators. I would check with your department at school or just search for national organizations for crime scene investigators and join the organization. Since you're still a student, usually they'll have a student rate that's lower reduced fees, and start reading up on what's going on in the field. And then find a mentor. So find someone who is actually working at that job. You can reach out through LinkedIn or professional journals and see who's authoring papers, and find someone who is working in that job and start asking questions. See how you can grow professionally. I know that when we're looking at career, that people have pretty traditional ideas of what a pipeline has to look like. But if you start learning about the environment that you want to be in and then find people who are in that environment, synergy takes away and you find yourself seeing opportunities, events, places, and things that you can get involved with this work that aren't the clear A to B. And I would be happy to answer any questions if any of that didn't make sense.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Lauren's career counseling background just came out there, and we love that. And please utilize Lauren, the Career Center, the Alumni Office. We can help connect you to people that are working in the field. So we are here to support you, Elena. Thanks for the thank you there. Well, team, thanks. I wanted to put a big thanks to our amazing panel members. Thank you so much for your time and energy. Before I close out here, I just want to make sure you know about a few resources that some have been even talked about today. So first, Handshake is a job and internship board that you all have access to as students, and you don't lose access as you roll in as an alumni. So it's something you keep access to. We have over, currently, when I checked today, there was over 3,000 postings specifically for UCCS students in all sorts of industries and areas. So definitely companies a lot of industries are hiring right now, despite what you might hear on the news and national media. Of course, LinkedIn is a great resource we want you to engage in, and we can help you build a profile, find alumni like Lauren talked about that are working in the field, and connect with them that way. You kind of have that kind of built in. And then, of course, we're always here at the Career Center to schedule an appointment. Talk about your specific situation, just like exactly what Lauren did with Elena, we would do with you and engage you and really learn what's important to you. So you can do that by emailing the careers at UCCS email. You can go to Starfish, lots of ways to engage with us here at the Career Center. So that's kind of it. We really appreciate the time and energy you all gave us. Thank you so much. And we look forward to your continued engagement at UCCS. Thanks for showing the pride that you guys gained through getting your degree.
Yes, thank you very much.